I did a couple other calls, and turns out the plan I got doesn't cover Cultus Lake properly, and technically I'm roaming there, and then it used up my 2 gigs of roaming data, and then I ran out of data anyway. So appreciate the reschedule.
No worries, no worries.
Got to switch back to Rogers. Shaw is not the best on mobile phones, apparently.
No worries at all, man. You look like you just came back from a vacation. You look like you're relaxed, so it's good.
And I'm happy to be in my warm house because it was raining half the time we were there.
Yeah. It's really hot in Toronto. How is it in Vancouver?
It's cold today, actually. It was, well, I mean, cold. It was 8 degrees this morning, first thing. I was surprised.
We're always on opposite ends of the spectrum.
Yeah, it's so weird. Like a week and a half ago, it was 35 degrees out in the middle of the day. And then just switches so fast.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
So,
how have you been? Anything else that's new?
I've been good. Not too much that's new. It's just been hustling, working hard.
Awesome.
Yeah, one of our team members had a baby girl over the weekend.
Oh, nice. That's awesome.
Yeah. So we're super excited for him. Also have to take on some of the load.
I bet.
Relax for a few days.
Yeah. Oh, that's
Yeah.
exciting.
So Eddie, I wanted Eddie to be with us because Eddie is he takes care of a lot of the digital stuff more and more. And I think it's great and important for him in his feedback to be to have part in this call. So let's proceed, and Eddie, feel free to kind of update us. I'll let actually Joel. There's a special. There's a not a special a list of topics that we're going to go through today. So let's go ahead.
Yeah, sounds good. So last time we talked about CRM technologies, and you were talking about RealVolve and getting started with them, integrations with RLP Sphere, email programs. So part of it is I wanted to understand how that was going, and how, to what extent you've been able to move things over or set things up with RealVolve, and if there's anything that we need to kind of clarify in terms of next steps or integrations with that process.
It's been going really good. RealVolve is it's just a monstrous tool. Lots of stuff to learn and to work on. We went through our first orientation. I think Eddie, how do you feel about RealVolve?
I feel good. I mean, it's a big animal we need to figure out, but it's really, really exciting program. Once it runs properly, it's going to take a loads of weight off our shoulders.
Mm-hmm.
We have integrations. From an integrations perspective, we're using both. Edgars has already. Did you set up the integrations on RLP Sphere, where not integrations, but basically where we're receiving the contact on RLP Sphere from Facebook or from Kajabi, and then they get into a email drip where they're receiving similar properties. Is that correct, Edgars?
It's not there yet. It's not in the tutorials of the program. I need to really contact somebody I could talk to one-on-one.
Okay. So RLP Sphere side of it. So right now, when people are added into RLP Sphere, is there anything that happens automatically? I think it happens automatically, no?
What happens automatically? They receive properties? No, they don't. They receive properties if they sign up. If they sign up and save a search, or we can make manually to each person to each person we can add a search for them given the criteria, but then we need to do it manually through every single person. I wanted to see how we can automate it based on a hashtag that comes with the client, and then to that hashtag there is a custom search that starts to be distributed to all those people who signed in from that particular property, right? We can do manually, but not automized right now.
Yeah, you should be able to, from what, I mean, I've only had a brief little screen share with you guys. The email templates looked like they were already built and need to be turned on maybe. And so that when someone signs up, it should capture what property they signed up on and should automatically have a template in there to send them related properties again as they show up without you having to set up like hashtags, I wouldn't think, and your own saved searches. It should be built into the system, but yeah. So that needs to be set up. And then obviously, like, so do you get an email that says those leads signed up, or?
So let me just fill you in, Joel, on how we've set this up.
Yeah.
And the reason why it's not probably not running, and maybe we can find a solution to that. We found that the highest conversion happens when we sign up people on Facebook. So the form is on Facebook, right? The Facebook ad, we don't take them out of Facebook. We keep them in Facebook. They fill in their information there.
Yep.
Now, when they go through Facebook, we've done a Zapier integration between Facebook, RLP Sphere, and Facebook RealVolve, and Facebook Kajabi. There's 3 integrations right now. When someone comes in from Facebook, that contact is added on Kajabi, RLP Sphere, and RealVolve. Now, the problem is because they're coming from Facebook, they're not going through the automated setup where they start receiving properties, because there's no reference to what property were they searching on, right? So this could be the broken link here. Maybe I feel like the conversions have been great right now. We're getting a good amount of, looking at how much we're spending, we're getting a really good amount of signups, but I think either it could be an email drip that follows, sign in over here and look at this property and other properties where they can register again, or it has to go straight from the ad straight to the property on RLP Sphere, right? What do you do? I think that's the reason why we're not, RLP Sphere is doing nothing right now.
Right. So the question is, what's happening with those leads that come through Facebook, and are they good leads? Because there's a difference between if you have a form on Facebook and it's getting a lot of signups, but the quality is really low, and the engagement and conversation that comes afterwards is really low, then it's not ultimately effective. So if you had fewer leads, but they come through RLP Sphere, and that means it can have that automated cycle afterwards, and they're higher quality leads, then, so I guess I'm just asking, like, what's the outcome of those Facebook leads so far?
How do you qualify a Facebook lead? How do you qualify the quality of it?
You're talking to me or Edgars?
No, for you, Joel.
I mean, that would depend on what conversation has come out of it, right? You get that information. Do you follow up? Do those conversations happen? How many of them do you think actually are interested in a property, are in that location? So I guess looking at your CRM system, because these are going into your CRM system, and then you follow up, correct? You should be able to see, okay, over the past 2 weeks, we've gotten 20 leads in from Facebook. 10 of them I've been able to actually contact. 2 of them said, yeah, I'm interested in properties. And the other 8 said, like, don't worry about it, I'm not interested. And so your success rate would be 2, qualified leads versus that 20 initial signups. So that's just an example of how you could kind of determine that. But you would need to look at your list of leads that have come in and be able to check off on a list or in your CRM system or a spreadsheet to say, like, these ones are all dead duds and these ones are good ones that we're still working on.
So your question with regards to the quality of them, we haven't been, Edgar, you haven't started following up fully, right?
Not fully, no. I tried to reach out to a couple people so far. Well, the rate was of the email opened was what, 45%, almost 12% unsubscribed. Then I tried to reach out to 5 people, none of them replied, right? So, but I haven't been fully engaged with every single phone, like every single lead, to try to give them a call.
Mhm.
So the
Okay,
quality, to answer your question, we don't know what the quality is right now.
fair enough.
Yeah, I've tried to follow up with some, and I don't know. I followed up with people on that came straight to Kajabi, and I followed up with people who came straight to like through Facebook.
Mhm.
I would say that they're the same. I wouldn't say that there's difference in quality. But Facebook is generating more. That's from my gauge. I think we can run numbers more and get a more precise idea.
Mhm. Okay. And then, so the third piece is, so you got leads from Kajabi, leads from Facebook, and then leads from RLP Sphere. And the ones from RLP Sphere, I guess, has anyone signed up through RLP Sphere to see those listings and to capture leads? Have you looked at that database?
Victor?
We don't generate leads on RLP Sphere. We send them to RLP Sphere. The reason why I want to send them to RLP Sphere is so when we do run Facebook ads, Google ads, when they sign up, they automatically get that I don't know if you call it drip campaign, but where they do weekly updates from RLP Sphere about similar properties. That's the only reason, and like my vision is that's the only reason why they are actually getting into the RLP Sphere. Other than that, they also get into RealVolve, where that's where we do the proper. We're supposed to do the proper follow up, qualify them, leave the notes, see when they called, see when they texted, and get the communication record there. But the RLP Sphere is mostly just to send them the properties. Send them the properties. That's the only thing. We don't really do lead gen in the website. We have to for that. I think we need to change we need to change the domain of the website because right now we're running on different RLP Sphere individual sites. I do it on mine just so I have full control. And it's like edgarsbrooks.royallepage.com. You know, nobody's gonna really Google that and be like, "Ooh, click on it and leave." I don't think so.
Hmm,
That's the thing.
interesting. I thought, I was under the impression RLP Sphere was more of a lead gen opportunity. If it came through, let's say if it was one of your listings and it came through the Royal LePage search function and they signed up for more information, I thought it would come into a lead for you.
They would come in if somebody was searching through Royal LePage.
Yeah.
Come in through RLP Sphere. We haven't. It's not a major source of lead gen. I think if
Yeah.
you are doing advertising, it could be a good converter, good source of lead gen. We haven't experienced, like we haven't tested that out. So I guess yeah, that's
Okay.
to go back to that same topic and just to see if we've actually addressed it or not. Problem is that leads are coming in from Facebook and being sent to RLP Sphere, but they're not being registered under RLP Sphere. What do you like? What are your thoughts?
I don't know if you're allowed. So they didn't sign up for RLP Sphere. So I wouldn't think that you're allowed to send them emails from RLP Sphere, right? Those automated emails. My assumption would be that to get those automated emails, they would have to sign up through RLP Sphere on that site. Because otherwise you'd get realtors who just find email address lists and stuff like that and add them to these RLP databases to get automated emails. I don't know. That's just an assumption, but to me, it seems weird if the lead signs up on Facebook and then they start getting emails from RLP Sphere. There's a bit of a disconnect there, depending on what they see on that Facebook form. So in any case, we've got leads coming in through your Kajabi sites and through Facebook. They go to RealVolve. You could follow up with them manually. And if we take a look at those numbers and stats and we follow up with all of them, then we should be able to get an idea of, what kind of leads we're getting from these different sources. But then also it's about what's the automation and what's the lead follow-up process. Because the last time we talked, or the time before that, we talked about 2 priorities. One of them is figuring out how do we follow up with these leads and creating that process of building those relationships with the people that we have, building the automation, building the drip campaigns, and the lead follow-up process. The second part is how do you generate more of those leads now that you actually have something to do with them, right? You're managing your current relationships and your current leads of what are coming in. So I think looking at your system on RealVolve and figuring out who and what is in charge of that follow-up process and what's the goal of those leads that are coming in through Facebook and those Kajabi pages. And so the hope is that they sign up through there. A percentage of them will be actively interested in pursuing properties and want more information. Another percentage of them will be interested in not that property, but okay getting your emails for the future if they're educational. And then a percentage of them will be not interested and they'll want to unsubscribe right away. And so we need to build that system so we can see how effective those leads are into conversations, into email subscribers, and then who drops off entirely, right?
What do we need to do, Joel, in order to do that?
So that is you're gonna need to go into RealVolve and figure out what the automated options are there, and figure out what that first touch point is, first 1 or 2 touch points from RealVolve. Hopefully it can be triggered by that. I guess you're using Zapier. When that new contact comes in through your Facebook lead or through the Kajabi lead and goes into RealVolve, the first automated email back to them or text message should be triggered as soon as they sign up. And then it needs to go into a queue for you to manage that lead and to give them a phone call to follow up or take it to the next level.
Okay. Edgar, what have we done with regards, because we built up the a drip campaign and we have a follow-up plan. Tell Joel what we've done with that.
We have an email that goes immediately out. And then basically the system is the email goes out right away. And then it's followed by a text message, which right now I was still doing manually. And then I'm supposed to call them, but that's about it. And then it jumps into the email sequence that we already have for the property, general information, and etc.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And I guess how long have we been doing that? It's only been a couple of weeks, right?
Yes, it's very fresh. Nothing has been fully set and done. Like set in stone, I would say, and finalized. It's all a little bit in the air still for me to figure out a couple of things that need to be done.
Yeah. So, I mean, those are the core first pieces, right? If you have those in place, they get an automated email when they sign up, they get a text message, and they get a phone call. And then if none of that gets a response, then they get onto receiving those future emails, and hopefully educational. Maybe you've got 1 or 2 more that are about that property, but you need to switch into that educational kind of thing, broaden that conversation. And then they're on your newsletter list as well for those monthly emails. And I'd be curious to know from other real estate agents doing this kind of lead process, what their conversion rate is, conversation rate from social media ads or this type of activity, because I don't have any stats or anything to base anything off of, but it'll be really important to look at what your stats are in your CRM system to say like, okay, over the last month, we got 200 new signups on all these different platforms. They went into RealVolve, they all got campaigns, 50% of them opened it, but we literally haven't talked to any of them, right? You haven't been able to have a conversation with any of those people other than they received your emails. If that continues for more than 2 months, and you're putting a bunch of money into these ads and nobody's actually having a conversation, there's something there that's not working, right? So I think that's what we need to determine. Obviously, you don't want to make a judgment call too early when you're just setting things up, but it is something to watch, particularly at the beginning.
I have an idea on how we can look at this to make things simpler and also more fluid. What if we were to consider, or what if we broke this into 3 stages: the before, the during, and the after? Okay.
Okay.
With the before being the ad process, we're getting properties, sorry, getting the people into seeing a specific property, getting them to sign up. And then the during being like the actual, you call it the follow-up process, which is getting on a phone call conversation. And then the after being the educational stuff.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep, that makes sense.
If we were to break it down to a before, during, and after, here's a small adjustment because we're working. So the during, me and Edgar met a couple of times in the last couple of weeks, and we talked about how we can make that into a consistent thing. So we're working on it. I was doing a lot of it. Edgar is now going to be taking care of the follow-up calls, and he's sharpened up the script. He's got that down, and he's going to be doing this on a regular basis. Any initiation takes some time to get going. So
for sure,
that's what's going on with the during. The after we changed the approach. We're going strictly educational. Maybe like you said, 1 or 2 emails about the property, not more. And then basically, you know, if you want to buy a house and if you want to make an educated decision, we're your people here. Come to us. And then in the after, it's going to be the videos that we're shooting. We're shooting videos on a monthly basis about the market and that kind of stuff. They will be incorporated there in some way. Yeah. Now the before unit, which I think is a little bit of that needs a little bit of tweaking. What if we were, instead of focusing only on our listings, Edgar, what if we have our listings, but also we can go and see any other listings in the brokerage or any other listings that we find interesting. We can ask for consent to advertise, the agents. So now we have a plethora of listings that we can advertise when the agent gives us consent. Now we have, instead of working with 2-3 properties, we're working with 10, 15. We can put smaller ad campaigns to see which ones are the ones that are most effective, most converting. And we just funnel it straight to RLP Sphere. So send it straight from Facebook to RLP Sphere to that specific property address. You're doing no setup. All you're doing is like, I have consent to advertise 7 properties and I have 3 listings. That's 10 properties. And just freaking run the ad straight to RLP Sphere. This way, RLP Sphere is doing its own magic, the AI, to read the people, to send them properties, and we're getting that engagement. And then they're being transferred to the after, which is the RealVolve, and then they're set up under the video, under the emails that we're sending out. And you get the during, where you're following up with more people. Now you have probably more targeted, more what did you call it? Serious? Not serious, like a higher
qualified,
higher lead.
Yeah. So I guess the part that I'm tripping on is advertising other real estate agents' listings.
This is a common thing in the industry, Joel. you can ask a person, if somebody's listed, you can say, hey, can I assist in marketing your property? And they may ask you, what are you going to do? And you can tell them, I'm going to do this. And they say, go ahead. And you have an email verification that you're assisting the listing agent in marketing that property. So you can advertise it, right? You have to advertise it saying that this is somebody else's listing, but it doesn't matter, right? What matters is people are coming in, seeing the property, and then getting into the RLP sphere process, right? Where we're getting more leads on the RLP sphere side. What are your thoughts on that, Edgar? And what are your thoughts on that, Joel? Because we like Facebook because we have a good amount of signups. If we had selected like the top listings that we think are good, then we'll also get really high signups because the listing itself is interesting, right?
So, but if you wouldn't want to send them directly to the RLP sphere page, because if they signed up there, you wouldn't get the lead, right?
We do. RLP sphere is ours. This is our RLP sphere.
But if you're going to someone else's listing,
we're searching for that person's listing on our RLP sphere, and we're sending them to our RLP sphere to see that person's listing. Because we have all the listings. We have all the listings on the MLS, right? So let's say property X is a really great property. We've identified it. Get consent. Agent says yes, we have it in writing. And then just send it to that URL, which is the property URL on our RLP sphere, and let RLP sphere do the rest. Because RLP sphere is good at
I got you.
RLP sphere is good at before, right? It's not good at after. We don't. RealVolve is good at after. We have RealVolve. We're setting it up, right?
Yeah, I mean, if that works and you can actually show them other listings on your site where you can capture the lead, absolutely. That's the other thing that I was going to bring up, but I didn't want to complicate it too much because you've got your Kajabi leads and you've got your Facebook forms.
We don't have Kajabi leads anymore. Everything is now going to Facebook.
Oh, you stopped the Kajabi. Okay.
Yeah, we've converted fully to Facebook because it's creating a much higher return on number of people.
Yeah.
Significantly higher. So we decided just make it all form for now.
Okay. So yeah, testing that conversion difference between the Facebook form and the Facebook form to the RLP page will be important to see the success of that and to see how many people sign up on that RLP page versus the Facebook form. And if it's as simple as, getting consent from another real estate agent and putting more listings up there, that sounds like a great plan. What do you think, Edgars?
And then also you monitor which listings are creating a better conversion, spend more money on the ones that are converting more, right? And spend less money on the ones that are converting less. Edgars, what do you think?
Yeah, I think it's a good idea. A little later, I would say, not right now. This is something that I need to understand first the follow-up sequence of its own for the properties that we do have. Because if we do this then I'm gonna be sitting on phone all day if we have 10 properties, right? That's a different department. I like the idea. I think we need to test first when we have a next listing coming, we need to test 2 different campaigns. One is going through leads on Facebook, and one campaign takes them to the Sphere website and see how many sign up then, and then we can understand the numbers, what makes more sense, right? Or we can give it a shot for a property that's very attractive and that's very on demand, and try to lure in people through that and see how they react. Will they go and sign up on RLP Sphere, or they will still just browse it and leave? Or maybe it makes more sense to really capture their information even on Facebook. And if we can, this is what I really want to figure out, if we can, when we get them to database, to automate emails that they receive, which is the properties, then that is the best, because we are not asking them for a sign up and creating a login to some random website that their domain, most likely they will forget,
Mhm.
right? That's my take on things about this. It is possible. I know, Joel, you said it's you don't know if it's doable from Facebook if a lead comes in and they start receiving if they start receiving the properties. We do get their consent to send the properties the second they sign up, right? Even if it's on Facebook form. So if we have a Facebook form named certain way, there is a small tag somewhere hidden, and that connects with a certain hashtag on the RLP sphere when we exchange through Zapier the lead. That can trigger right away one-time weekly email about the similar properties. I think that would be the best.
Mhm. Yeah, that makes
Basically,
sense.
that's what I think.
Okay. So what you're saying is we'll finish setting up the follow-up sequence, test the Facebook form versus Facebook to RLP sphere page leads. And then the third thing would be testing with other agent listings after those. Makes sense. And you're right. Like if your follow-up sequence is labor intensive and it's a lot of phone calls and voicemails and things like that, if you increase the number of leads, that's obviously, you know, something you got to deal with and hire people for, or decide. Well, it's a good problem, assuming that you can have those conversations. Sorry.
If you're able to convert, for sure.
So yeah, deciding, you know, maybe the RLP leads are better and those are the ones you want to follow up with versus the Facebook leads. And maybe you segment like these listing or these leads get phone calls and these leads don't, to try and deal with that problem. But I mean, you can deal with that when it comes to it, right? So that that sounds like a good plan, Edgars. I like that. The automations. Yeah, your Facebook ads, do they look, are they specific listing ads? They look like a single property when they sign up? Yeah, okay. Because the other test that you'll want to do is just branded ads too, right?
Branded. So that's taking them to the website.
Yeah. And just starting to see, because if you're targeting people on Facebook for specific listings, but then they're also occasionally seeing your face and the company, the next time they actually go to the listing or something like that, there's just more touch points, right? As opposed to just seeing listings, as opposed to your brand. But that's not a necessity right now anyways. Okay. The automations, you talking about educational automations, and you had, I don't remember how many emails it was, 9 or 10 kind of different segments and stuff that you were lining up. Is all of that created but needs to be input into systems and software, or are you still working on creating those educational emails and videos?
No, we right now we finalized the first part of that sequence, which is the email, the text message, and the follow-up phone call. And we haven't. This is the next phase for us, so we haven't started working on the next phase.
Okay. I would suggest, like, you don't have to start with 10 emails, right? Start with 2. Obviously work on like the actual lead follow-up process like you were talking about. But in terms of the educational pieces, yeah, start with 2 emails and then they'll get your kind of monthly newsletters after that, right? It doesn't need to be 10 right at the beginning. I'm just making a note here and I'll put it in the email too. Next time we meet, actually that's next week, so maybe not next week, maybe the following time. If you can work on maybe Edgars to bring stats, what are the numbers on the leads? and what happens with them. So do a bit of that analysis to say like, okay, over the last month, we've got this many leads. This many of them have not opened the emails at all. This many have opened the emails. These are the ones we've actually been able to talk to. What's the percentage there? So we have some sort of baseline so we can see where things are going up and down and what part of the cycle needs to be tweaked, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. So I think, we talked about doing website revamps and things like that. I think we don't need to really go into that yet. Correct me if I'm wrong, if that's something you'd like to address sooner rather than later, Omar. But I think there's a lot to do here already with this lead follow-up process, with the automations, with getting some of this educational stuff together. Just wanted to see where you're at with some of those kind of larger things like a website refresh.
There's too many things going on outside the digital side.
Yeah.
I think it's a very important thing, but right now there is no space to take on anything else. The Edgars by next week, what do you think? What do you think should be our goal to kind of complete? You talked about the bringing the stats, the number of leads, the open rates, the number of conversations, kind of so we can build up a baseline. What else are we hoping to do? What are you hoping to have finished? Did you check into kind of automating the texts so you're not texting manually? You're on mute, Eddie. You're on mute.
Yeah, I can be done through RealVolve. I just need to set it up and that's it.
Yeah. So if we said that we can set up the email and the text through RealVolve, which is our after unit, and maybe make a plan what 2 videos we're going to be talking about with regards to education to start off with phase number 2. We have a list of different topics, maybe select the 2 that we're going to be doing for education. If we complete these 2, we'd have our after unit would be doing pretty well. And in the meantime, I don't think we have any new leads coming in, right, Eddie? Because we sold that last listing. So right now we're not really doing any other lead. I think if we, we can have, I think the idea that I brought up with a different property, like a different agent, if we get somebody to give us consent just for the sake of these baseline numbers, conversations, we can try to do 1 property listing, because from now until the next conversation, there is not going to be any other new leads. We only have the old leads, which are different conversion altogether. It's very different when someone gets a call on the same day and when someone gets a call a week after. So for the sake of running numbers, if we run 1 or 2 listings that we can get consent on from the office, make it super easy. I think that will at least get us prepared, because we have a listing coming up very soon. So we need to have this stuff running before that listing comes up. So we can't really test on the listing. We got to test before the listing. What do you think? Do you think that's a lot? Do you think that's manageable? What are your thoughts?
You ask me?
Yeah. Creating an ad, directing it to RLP Sphere, that specific property, and then just maybe changing the integration on Zapier to go from RLP Sphere to RealVolve.
Okay. After maybe a certain point, if they go through, they can get the RealVolve.
What do you mean after a certain point?
What's the point for them to? Okay. I know what you mean. If they sign up, it goes to RealVolve. But if they sign up through RLP Sphere,
Yeah.
that's what you mean, yeah?
Yeah, because the idea is to see if RLP Sphere is going to convert higher quality leads than Facebook. So
Okay.
So we want to try to get people into RLP Sphere instead of through Facebook and see how that looks like. Meanwhile, our during unit, sorry, the after unit is what you've already been working on. We can wrap that up. We can have the email and text. The during unit is just calling these people and seeing how many engagements we can have. And then the before unit would be just kind of, don't build a website on Kajabi, just connect it to RLP Sphere. Let RLP convert and do magic.
Mhm. So it sounds like, I mean, there's a decent amount of work here for for Edgars, between, you know, setting up these different listings, automations, figuring out how to do the RLP kind of automated related listings, emails. Are there things on now I'm kind of stepping into different kind of managerial conversation here, but are there things on Edgar's plate that he could pass off or delay or something like that to work on this setup? Because I find that, you know, when we're working on doing new systems, you're adding things on, right? Like people are busy and they're like, oh, let's do this project, so we'll put it on top, and now Edgar's is working 60 hours a week.
Yeah.
So anyways, I'll just kind of put that bug in your ear and see if you know, we don't have to talk about it right now, but if there's anything I can pass off to somebody else.
Edgars is he calls the shots when it comes to that department. Like he can say, okay, that's what I want to focus on first. That's what I want to focus on second, because that's his department. He's the guy that's in charge when it comes to that. So up to really completely up to Edgars how you want to, what do you want to set as a goal for next week? And it's very important for it to be achievable, 100%. So we don't, not to overload too much. Right now, we don't have a lot of listings. We have no listings, actually. We sold them all off, which is great, right? So we have, Edgars has a couple of clients in his hands. So Edgars, you tell me how you want to, what do you want to set as a goal for next week?
You see, it's difficult for me to have a conversation about goal setting for next week because I'm gone for half of that week, right? I'm away from Friday till Monday almost.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to be able to work. So if we're talking about just the next 2 days and Monday, I don't think I can really manage it all because, like you said, I also have a couple of clients in my hands. I would rather have a conversation. I don't know. We have another meeting next week, Tuesday. Is that what's going on?
Yeah, because this meeting was delayed a week, so technically our next one is next week, unless we want to just kind of bump the cycle and go 2 weeks from now.
Why don't we do that? Why don't we do that, Joe? Why don't we bump next week as well, and then we can catch up the week after that if we think that that's a good idea.
Yeah.
But why don't we bump it to 2 weeks, because that's typically enough time for us to take what we've talked about and do something about it. And you're right, Eddie, you're going to be gone for a good 4 days. So let's do that. But do you think, Eddie, is that what we wanna focus on? Doing small accomplishments in the before, the after, and the during, like the. What do you think we should be setting as a goal?
I like that. I like that idea. I think definitely if we're bumping up the next meeting in 2 weeks, it's gonna give me enough time to kind of, for the rest of the week, set up the things in terms of the follow-up, the drip campaigns, and make sure the leads go right ways. And then next week we launch. We find the right property or two. I would probably start with one and run 2 different ads. Start testing them and start getting the numbers for that 1 week to get the results. 1 week we got this many people, this much engagement, this much conversations or whatnot, and then we can basically measure weekly or bi-weekly afterwards. But the first measurement is going to be a weekly one. But then if I separate the departments, I think that would make the most sense now for the rest of this week. do the real valve and RLV sphere and connection, and try to get in touch with somebody from Signature about the RLV sphere, and then finalize that. And then once next week starts, we bump out 2 ads and see what we can do.
Mhm.
That
Yep.
would be the best scenario for me.
Yeah, that sounds good to me. And I think, depending on how much there is to review next time, the other thing is, it would be helpful probably for these conversations to actually go through some of that creative. Like what are the ads? What do they look like? What's the copy on them? What do those kind of emails and text messages say, and what are those educational pieces that we're sharing, and see if there's anything we can adjust and talk about for those different pieces. So there's like the tech aspect of it that Edgars is working on, like how do we set up these links, how do we set up the automations, and then there's the creative aspect of it, like what do those words say, what is the actual education that we're sharing, or what's the content, right? So I think that's kind of the next conversation after the tech is implemented, is then going back and revising the content.
Agreed. Did I share with you the script that we have that we've come up with the first email and the text?
I've seen the first email. I don't know if I saw a text. And then you said you had a script for the phone as well.
Yeah. So we can touch on it a little bit here. We have another 10 minutes. Do you want to do that?
Sure. Yeah, let's do it.
So the outcome of the email is to create a bit of a personality, a way that they can, some likability, demonstrate knowledge and experience, and kind of basically that's it. The integrity, knowledge, experience, what we're about, and a little bit of personality. That's the outcome of the email.
Mm-hmm.
The outcome of the text message is to ask a simple question about the property, right? So each one of these properties will have a slightly different question, something pertaining to the property, right? So it could be about renovations, it could be about, I don't know, the size of the terrace or whatever, right? Whatever is unique to that property that potentially attracted them to click on the button, right? So a question which would make it easy for engagement. It's just a simple answer.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the outcome of the text message. The outcome of the phone call is primarily to see if to ask for feedback about the property, and to say, right off the bat, like, tell me a little bit about what you're interested in. I may be able to help you. Doesn't necessarily need to be this property, but tell me what you're looking for, and kind of gauge, understand their world. People like to talk about themselves, so give them space to talk about themselves. That's the way that we thought about breaking down the 3 modes of communication. Do you think there's anything else that needs to be added in either? And
I like you. I love your focus on questions. I think that's a great way to get people engaged and thinking, as opposed to just trying to give them more information. So that's a great approach. And you're right. People do love talking about themselves. I think trying to make sure that it's not too scripty. Like, does it sound like someone's on the phone and reading off of a script? Because you don't want it to sound like that. You want it to be like bullet points, and then whoever is saying it, like Edgar is going to use his own voice and however he wants to phrase those things, but you have those outcomes listed, not the actual lines of text that you want to be said, right? So that would be something I would encourage, and I don't know how it's written out now. What does that sound like?
Oh,
Do you think
1 second, guys. Am I here still? What happened?
Yeah, you're here.
Never. Sorry, I have technical difficulties. I wanted to ask something too. I have a little concern about this welcome email. I love it. I love this text that we drafted, and I think it does bring a lot of value. But from today's I want to say attention span. I'm not sure if that's the right phrase to use, but
Mhm.
when I
Very
get an
long.
email,
Is it too long?
when I get an email and it's a freaking paragraph, do I really want to read it? Right? So how do we, is there something we can do better? Is it less text or is it something visual? Because we are these days very visual, right? Everything is screen, everything is emotion, attracted. Oh my God. We don't necessarily read books and paragraphs on our phones all the time. At least
Mhm.
majority of people don't. I would say successful people do, but I don't know. But I don't know. That's my one concern is that I feel like we're not tapping to a full potential to all people because there's too much text.
Mhm. Yeah, you very well could be right. But it's something to test once the system is running, right? You can turn it on with this version of the email, and see what the unsubscribe rate is, see what the open rate is. The open rate will tell you what your subject line, if your subject line is effective, that's the open rate. The response rate or the unsubscribe rate might tell you more about the content of the email, and whether the content is good. And so once the system is running, then you start tweaking the subject line. You say, okay, let's try a different subject line and see if that changes the open rate. Then you change the body of the text. And you say, okay, well, we tried this long one, super a ton of personality. Let's try one with 2 sentences in it. Hey, thanks for signing up for this thing. I'm Omar. I'm super cool. Um, you can text me here if you have any questions about like getting started to buy a house. Boom, and then you're done. And you compare the two, right? You see how they're doing.
It doesn't really
Um,
matter what the content is at the moment. It's what matters is getting it to run
yeah.
so that we can gather information so that we can compare to something because nobody has the answer. It could be true, it could be completely off. It could be very empowering. So, but you have received it, right, Joel? I did send it to you. I can't remember.
Yeah, I think we went back and forth at least once on the email.
You saw this one, right?
The intro looks different than what I'm remembering.
Maybe I didn't send you the last one.
Yeah.
We had a little bit of humor to it. Like at the end, for example, interested in knowing more about your client-centric specialty approach. Email us with questions. God forbid you choose to work with your cousin's wife's second uncle realtor. It's all good. We're all sure Gary's a great guy. Like we added a little bit of humor to it.
Yeah. No, I love that. I mean, you could almost start with that.
Maybe.
Like, I'm could obviously work with it. I don't know if that's exactly the first opening line, but I love where it's going. And I think that first paragraph, it also depends on how you format the email. It seems stupid, but when you have a paragraph like that, as opposed to single sentences in different lines, when you read it on a phone, it looks super long. Like it goes like the whole paragraph is the size of the phone. But if you make your first line one sentence and then do a line break and start a new paragraph, then it's broken up on the phone and it's easier to read than if it's like one big block of text. So that's just a simple thing about formatting. But if you wouldn't mind emailing that to me, I could take a little bit of a deeper look at it.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of like that first sentence is something that should be unique and have personality or raise a question or something like that, right? So I love the way you added that personality to the end, but can we get some of that in that like first introduction, right?
I agree. I sent it to you, Joel. Let me know
Okay.
what you think and if there's any suggestions.
Mhm.
We're trying to tweak approach, but again, it doesn't. It's great. We're making progress, but it really doesn't matter right now. It's important is that we accumulate data. We
Mhm.
need to know what our baseline is, like you said. I think that's very important.
Yeah. Yeah. You set up the system and then you start tweaking the system.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. The other thing, maybe if you have notes on the educational pieces, I think you were talking about that earlier, thinking about what are those first 2 videos or first 2 emails that you want to send about more education. If you have ideas or thoughts on that, feel free to email it my way, and then we can kind of go back and forth about what the content or topics could be about that.
I think I've sent it to you before, the list of different ones.
Yeah, you sent me the full list, right?
Yeah, so we can, are you saying that if we have, if
Let's say if you started with 2, like let's pick 2, right?
picking the 2 and kind of going into it a little bit more detail and saying, okay, well, this is what we're going to talk about.
Yeah.
Okay, I can do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I think
Eddie made it to the destination safely. You know, Joe's got a big smile on his face. We got to talk about some cool stuff. I think this is a really good meeting.
this was a good meeting. Yeah, we got some big projects and tasks to do. So let's get it started.
Awesome, man. Thank you. Thank you for
Sounds good.
supporting us,
Thank you.
Joel.
Awesome.
And, we'll connect not next week, the week after then, okay?
Yeah, sounds good. Do you want to move the meeting invite on your end? I think you're the owner of it.
Yeah, I can move the meeting invite, and we'll make it for the original time, 2:00, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Awesome. Thanks so much. Hope you have a good one.
Take care, guys.
Have a good one. Bye.
See ya.
Bye.